Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to a brand new episode of Wrestling with Awareness. I am your host, Vikram Prashar, and today I have a very special guest with us today. He is a six-time WWE Hardcore Champion, a WWE Tag Team Champion, a WWE European Champion. He is a legend in professional wrestling, a veteran in ECW and WWE. Today we're going to wrestle the mind with Al Snow. How are you doing today, Al?
If I were doing any better, I'd be jealous of myself, Vikram.
Man, absolutely. Here we are. It's February 2021,
Yep.
and the way that I've been beginning all my interviews and the way I'd like to continue doing so is with gratitude, because 2020 was a difficult year for many people, and when finding inner happiness and peace, gratitude is something very important. So although 2020 was a difficult year, was there anything that you're grateful for that came out of it?
Oh, everything. I'm always grateful every day. It's a matter of choice. You can choose to, be upset and be ridden with anxiety and worry, or you can choose to be grateful. And I have a lot. I have a lot to be grateful for, and I'm very blessed, and I'm very fortunate. I have a beautiful wife, wonderful family. I get to do what I love to do for as long as I've gotten to do it. Nobody's yet to figure out that I don't have a clue of what I'm doing. So as long as they, I keep just BSing my way through, then, so yeah, I've been very grateful for all the blessings that I have.
Man, absolutely. And that's a really good mindset to have, because that's how people stay happy and stay positive. Because one thing I find is that when I'm speaking to someone who's a little bit down or is just constantly not in the greatest mood, obviously maybe they have it harder than me or you or anybody else out there, but also it's just finding gratitude and finding the silver linings and little things, because I've always believed in taking the bad with the good. If you want good, some bad's going to come with it. It's just a matter of what do you focus on? Do you focus on the good or the bad? So absolutely.
Well, there's a saying that you wish people enough. You don't wish them to be happy or wish them to be sad or wish them anything. You wish them enough sadness to be grateful for the happiness. Enough rain to enjoy the sun. Enough, hard times to enjoy the good times. Just enough.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. That is a really good saying. And, if we're talking about what's been going on recently, I've seen you have been building up Ohio Valley Wrestling, OVW, to what it is today. And the promotion has been getting a lot of attention lately. So tell me a little bit about that.
Myself and my partner, Chad Miller, we purchased the Ohio Valley Wrestling OVW back in June of 2018. And basically started reconstructing OVW. It's always had a very long and very rich history, known as the Harvard of professional wrestling. It was the developmental territory for WWE, where they turned out, we turned out John Cena, Brock Lesnar, Randy Orton, probably alumni-wise, probably 200 and some plus alumni that were in WWE and went on to have major careers throughout wrestling around the world. I wanted to take that reputation, take that brand awareness and rebuild it and start it again. And, we're now, television-wise, we're in 8 national networks. We're in about 150 million homes across the country. We are in about 700 million homes around the world through Roku, Amazon Fire, Amazon Prime, and we're on Sky Sports and a European sports channel called Sports International, and we literally go across the globe with OVW. Our school, the wrestling training school, we are the very first ever in the world to be, state approved trade school for professional wrestling, sports entertainment, and broadcasting. So, I'm trying to raise the bar and, take take professional wrestling back to where it was, which is where it's not a hobby, it's not a pastime, it's a profession, it's a career. And I take very seriously my responsibility to the young men and women that attend the school or are a part of OVW, and to ensure that they learn every skill that they possibly need to know to be able to take advantage of any opportunities that may present themselves in the world of professional wrestling.
Absolutely. And I think you're doing a hell of a job with it, because it's definitely getting a lot of eyes more on it. And it's made so many big stars like John Cena, Brock Lesnar, Batista, Randy Orton. It's really crazy. And now I feel like with all these global networks airing OVW, maybe it's not as much of a developmental brand anymore, because I could definitely see a lot of indie guys wanting to go there.
It's not a developmental at all. It is a functioning, and it always has been, a functioning, it's a regional territory, but a functioning regional territory where what I'm trying to build is a platform for young talent to gain experience and exposure and polish, and for older, more experienced talent that may have had a run at a higher level, and that when that run comes to an end, have a place that they can go and make a living and reinvent themselves so that they can possibly have another opportunity to get another run again. So, that's the endeavor, that's the goal. And then, for people that are fresh to professional wrestling, it's a place where they can, one, come and be safe, and be taught not only the proper skills within the ring, but also skills backstage, so that because it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when their careers are going to come to an end within performing in the ring, they can have some skills that will allow them to still be able to be an asset within the world of professional wrestling and broadcasting and sports entertainment, and still have a career that they could pursue if they want. And that's important, because, like I said, it's not a matter of if your career within the ring comes to an end. It's a matter of when it comes to an end, and whether that's through injury or through time or attrition. It's just a matter of when. And when it comes, you want to have those additional skills to be able to still make a living.
Yeah, man, absolutely. And OVW has such phenomenal talent. Like, an example could be the OVW National Heavyweight Champion, Mr. Spectacular, for example. Out of all the talent there, out of all the great talent, what talent would you say major promotions like a WWE or an AEW should take a look at right now?
Well, one would be Jesse Goddard's, but there's, he's right at the top of the list, because he's had experience and he's had polish, and he's already, he's been on a national promotion once before with Impact Wrestling. But people ask me that, and I try not to be specific, because there are quite a few that I would recommend people to take a look at, but I don't want to say names, because if I miss one name and one of the talent hear it, then they're like, well, what about me? And they get their feelings hurt. And so it's like, you know what? I'm better off just saying, hey, there's a lot of talent there that people should take a look at. And I think they would be surprised at just how good they are and how developed they are.
Of course. And I think that's definitely a good perspective to have on it, taking into consideration the students, but also letting people know, hey, there's a lot of talent here. Scout it, and if you're interested in someone, just let me know. I think that's a very good way to do it. And you have such a respected career in professional wrestling, and in my opinion, you're one of the best to ever do it. So, like, yeah, of course, man, absolutely. So, who is your favorite person to work with, and what would you say was probably your favorite match you've had? I know that's a tough question, but
it is a tough question. And it's there are lots of guys that I really, over the years enjoyed working with, and because you have that chemistry and you just click, but to pick one out, it's very difficult, or to pick one match that's your favorite, when every time I go out there, it's there's nothing better. It's the thing that makes me feel the most alive, is when I'm in the ring in front of an audience. And to pick just one singular match, Mick Foley and I had an argument one time, because he's like, oh, you should be able to pick one match. And I'm like, no, really, every time I go out there, I just love doing it so much. It's not easy for me to go, oh, well, just this one time that was the best. I can tell you that I've had numerous times where I've been in the ring and you have these matches where you don't talk about things. You don't you 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 just act on instinct, and the other person reacts on instinct, and it's effortless. Nothing hurts when you're doing it because the adrenaline's going. The audience reacts the way that you want them to react, when you want them to react, how much you want them to react, and you don't have to think. It just happens, and those are the the best moments because they're the ones that really, it's like a drug. You get hooked on, and then you chase that every night, trying to make that happen again and again and again. And those would be my favorite matches. Would be those nights where it all just worked. It just clicked, and the other guy was right there with you, and you didn't talk, you just did. And
Oh wow.
So
you wouldn't even call the shots. It was like that's how much it clicked.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That sounds really good. And I remember something a little bit similar because I'm currently training with Tyson Dukes at the Tyson Dukes Wrestling Factory.
I'll tell him I said hi.
Oh yeah, of course. I'll definitely let him know.
He's a great guy. Yeah.
Yeah, he really is. And I remember
You're lucky because Tyson's, he's a good trainer. He knows the basics and the fundamentals, and he'll teach you the right way. And not only will he teach you what to do in the ring, he'll teach you about how to conduct the business of professional wrestling. It's that there are a lot of things that are intrinsic to professional wrestling that aren't being taught anymore, and Tyson's one of the guys will teach you those things. So.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, he's phenomenal. And like I've only been training for a short amount of time, but I already feel like I look at the business a lot differently just through hearing his perspective. And like he said something similar to how you said. He was just talking about lockups because the first thing he taught us was lockups in chain wrestling. Sure. And he said the nights that you will know are probably going to be some of the best matches of your career, or when you hit a good lockup and just right off the bat the entire place erupts off of that. And yeah, absolutely, man. I couldn't agree more when it comes to that. When everything just clicks, I think that would definitely be the best.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. So as mentioned earlier, I said you're one of the best to ever do it because I genuinely believe that. And I'm curious to know, could you see yourself entering the WWE Hall of Fame? And if so, who would you want to induct you?
No, I don't think that's ever going to happen. No, I'd really be surprised if they were to call me up and say, "Hey, we're going to induct you in the Hall of Fame." I'd be like, "What?" I'd think they were ribbing me or something. So, I don't think that's going to happen.
You don't think so? Well, if it were to happen, who would you want to induct you?
Well, if we're going to play the if game, well then I would want Vince McMahon to induct me.
That's a very good person to induct you, man. He probably.
Yeah. He's not going to do it.
He knows everything. Man, who knows, man? Who knows what the future holds?
You never know,
I'd love to see it, and I think a lot of others would also love to see it, man.
Well, it's very flattering. I really appreciate that, but yeah, I find it highly unlikely.
Of
course.
What they
say? They say if, and it's like, well, if a frog had wings, it wouldn't bump his ass. So.
Man, absolutely. So, we touched on Vince McMahon and WWE. They're doing great stuff as always, but we've seen the AEW World Champion Kenny Omega enter Impact Wrestling. We've seen the Impact Tag Team Champions, the Good Brothers, go to AEW. New Japan's Kenta has gone to AEW. Then you got Moxley and Jericho going to New Japan. A lot of stuff, a lot of promotions working together and sharing talent. What's your thoughts on the unity that we're seeing in pro wrestling right now?
I think it's great, and I think it's smart. Share resources. You're not going to outdo WWE at being WWE. You're not. The one big advantage that WWE has over everybody else is time and experience. They are a iconic brand. They're much like Band-Aid and, you know, Q-Tip and Harley Davidson. You know, they're an iconic brand, and you're not going to beat them at their own game. But by, you know, being creative and taking a new approach and utilizing other people, other companies to join forces and create a synergy that would not be possible and wouldn't be available, because the one big thing that AEW can do to fight WWE, and is what really led to the Monday Night Wars between WCW and WWE, is that, you know, they were able to access new talent and bring new talent in from different areas and different parts of the world and different promotions. And so there was always there was fresh new faces for the audience to get behind and take an interest in. You know, wrestlers are a product, bar none. That's all they are. They're a car. They're peanut butter. They're, you know, and every product has a shelf life. And, you know, even wrestlers and even in WWE have a shelf life, because, you know, you can only watch the same wrestler for so often. And, you know, back in the day, we had the benefit of being able to leave the territory, go to another territory, and still be able to make a living. And unfortunately nowadays, you know, it's a lot more limited. The wrestling world has shrunk, and a lot of these talents stay in particular promotions for very lengthy amounts of time, and, you know, the audience gets burned out on them. And AEW is doing the right thing, bringing in new faces from other places to, you know, catch an audience and catch their imagination, and, you know, help to drive business and ratings and get attention. So I think it's great.
Yeah, of course. I couldn't agree more. And I think the more we work together, the better it'll be for professional wrestling itself. And you briefly touched on the territories there. Do you think, like, in a small, obviously it's not like the territories, but in a small way, do you think there's some similarities nowadays with the territories and the whole rise of independent wrestling and all these different promotions? Would you say it's a bit similar?
History always repeats itself. And professional wrestling, it's, you know, this isn't the first time that professional wrestling has been on a national or international. So internationally, yes, but nationally, WWE is not the first time that it was been on a national stage. They have throughout the years went national, then went regional, then went national, and then regional again. And, you know, history repeats itself, and there's a good opportunity here that potentially wrestling could go back regionally. You're never going to displace WWE. I mean, it's going to stay here, you know, and it's still going to be the national outlet. But there are places, rungs on the ladder, that, you know, operations can not only survive but thrive on a regional basis. You know, that's what I hope to do with OVW, is reach out to a national and international audience via television and streaming, but live event wise, just maintain a regional presence in regards to, you know, the live event touring, because we just don't have the infrastructure to be able to, you know, travel across the country and, you know, run events everywhere. So, you know, if you want to come to watch a live event, you have to come down, you know, into the state of Kentucky or Indiana or Ohio or, you know, West Virginia, and, you know, visit us there. But we're not going to go much beyond a 2.5-3 hour radius to do live events. You know, we're not going to, you know, even WWE, you know, the running live events is a massive money investment. And for us, you know, it's a viable option, because of the fact that, you know, we're not going to have the expenses that a national promotion would have, and to run those live events. We can do it on a much tighter budget with a much lower overhead, and operate and actually make money.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's really opening up about not only from an in-ring perspective, not only from like it also opens up about a business perspective, right? How we can reach that point, how we can have it where a lot of these other promotions, which are getting a lot of exposure, can gain more exposure. And yeah, that's just where wrestling thrives, when pretty much everywhere is thriving. And so you've been in the wrestling business for a while now. You've seen people come, you've seen people go, and I'm curious to know two things. If you could change anything about the current state of professional wrestling, what would you change? And what's something about this era of professional wrestling right now that you wish was in your era?
What would I change? Just, more, I'd say more places for wrestlers to, to work and make a living, on a regular basis. What would I want in my era back in the day? If used correctly, God, I would love to have had social media back in the day, because, now professional wrestlers don't have to be totally solely reliant on the promoters to market their brands on the platform. Basically that's what the wrestling show is an opportunity to market themselves and make themselves a star. Now they've got social media that they can do it on their own. And God, it can put you miles ahead of where you would normally be just by using social media. When I first started, the only thing outside of television was the after magazines. And if you were to get featured in the after magazine, which meant that your name now had value in, say, California, where before it wouldn't be worth anything because they didn't know who you were. And that really is what it comes down to, is that as a wrestler, your only value is what your name on a poster will potentially motivate a number of ticket sales. That's it. You're not entitled. I know that's the popular thing these days, but you're not entitled to get paid. I'm sorry. I hate to break that to you. But if you're expecting that this is like a job at Walmart, it's not. You're a self-employed person. You are the brand. You are the product. And then you join with the promoter, and it's a business relationship where the promoter basically creates a platform for you to go out and advertise your brand and motivate people to want to pay to see you. No matter how good you are in the ring, doesn't matter how athletic you are, doesn't matter what kind of moves you can do. If you cannot warrant the investment that's made by the promoter to the point to where he not only makes that investment back, but makes a profit, if you can't do that, you're not worth anything, period. And back in the day, we relied on the television show and we relied on the magazines to get our name out to where we could reach out beyond just where we lived and be able to get opportunities to make money, to get booked in other areas. And now with social media, you can do that all over the world, and it's at your fingertips with your phone, and if you're smart about it, you can really capitalize on that. Hold on just a second. I'm going to turn on the light because the sun's starting to set and the room's getting dark. And
Yeah, no problem.
You're going to hear me, but you're not going to be able to see me. We don't want to do that. So,
Of course, man. Absolutely.
Okay, that's a little better. So,
Yeah.
so definitely the one thing I would want to have back in the day would be social media. But you have to be smart. You have to use it correctly, and not, I give every young man and woman the same advice in OVW, and that is to make 2 social media accounts on every platform. One that's yours personally, and that only your friends and family can access, and you be 100% you. And then one that's for the public. And for that public platform, you are only 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. You are only the thing that you sold on TV. If you were, because everybody like, oh my God, Matt Hardy, when he never broke character, when he did podcasts and everything, he stayed in character. Oh, he's a genius. Listen, that is what wrestlers have been doing for decades. And that's why they were successful, is because if an audience can believe in who you are, they'll believe in anything you do in the ring. That's the key to being an attraction, to being a draw. That, Steve Austin, Undertaker, Vince McMahon, the reason they were a draw, the reason they were an attraction was because you could believe in who they were.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's definitely like if I was to go back in time, I'd say the tool I'd want to keep too is social media, just because it's such a good way to market yourself.
Awesome.
Yeah, it's really amazing. And you've got such a good mind for the business. Like as a pro wrestler in training, I've watched the clips from your seminars on YouTube just to learn more because I really like your perspective on the business. And I'm very curious, what advice would you give to a pro wrestler in training like myself who are currently watching?
One, to make a conscious decision that you truly want to do this. Okay? Understand that if you want to live a life that others don't live, you've got to be willing to do things that others don't do, period. And if you're not honestly willing to do that, don't waste your time. Simple as that. You, quite honestly, can do anything you want to do. Anything. Nothing's impossible. Is it improbable? Yes. But is it impossible? No. If you truly want something bad enough, you'll find a way. If you don't, you'll find an excuse. Simple as that. You can lie to yourself all you want. You can justify, you can claim that you want this more than anything. And trust me, over the years, I have had literally thousands, not exaggerating, come up to me and, oh yeah, this is the only thing I ever want to do. I eat it, I sleep it, I breathe it. Sure you do. And I always tell everyone the same thing. We'll see. Because I'll judge you by what you do, not what you say. Anybody can say that they want to do something. Not everybody will walk the walk and do what they have to do. And that's a choice. You can make the decision to do it. Or you can sit there and make the decision to lie to yourself, fool yourself, and make excuses. Simple as that. Be a victim. Everybody loves to be a victim today. Everybody. And the unfortunate thing is that if we're all victims, who's victimizing who? Because you got to have somebody that's the antagonist. We can't all be the babyface. We've got to have some heels. But if we're all babyfaces and we're all victims, well, there's no heels. So, don't be a victim. Make a clear decision and a choice, and then go for it. And understand, this isn't a life that others live. This is a very difficult, and I'm not just saying this, but it is a very, very challenging, very difficult, physically, emotionally, and mentally way of living. And if you're not prepared to deal with that, then don't do it.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more, and that is really good advice. Actions speak louder than words, and adapting that warrior mindset rather than that victim mindset, because that doesn't only go for pro wrestling. That really goes for everything. There's people who treat themselves as a victim. There's people who treat themselves as a warrior and try to get through the problems that face them. So I really couldn't agree more, and that was some really good advice. And speaking of mindsets, on Wrestling with Awareness, we always like to tap into mental health as a topic. So if you're comfortable sharing, of course, have you ever struggled with your mental health, and what advice would you give to people?
I do all the time. Yeah. I go through the same challenges that everybody else does. It's no different for me than it is anybody else. There are lots of times that I deal with, things like that. But it's, you make a decision, you make a choice. You either let it beat you or you pick up and you keep moving on. Nothing's ever perfect. Nothing's ever black and nothing's ever totally white. You've got to make the choice to keep moving. And because life is relentless. It will never stop until you finally have to one day. So, why not choose to just keep going? You're going to face those challenges no matter what you do, no matter where you are, no matter what part of your life you're in. You're always going to have a positive and you're always going to have negatives. That's why I always say wish people enough. have enough negatives so that I can appreciate the positives. I have enough losses so that I can appreciate the wins. Have enough challenges so I can feel like I've climbed a mountain. So
Yeah, and I
just my
think that's
perspective, and I'm sure there are people that will probably listen to this and go, he's full of shit. No, I'm not. That's my perspective and my opinion, and that's the way I approach things. And
yeah, of
listen, it doesn't
course.
always work. Sometimes I become a mess. Sometimes I fall apart. Sometimes I get frustrated. Sometimes, and I've been my own worst enemy. Because the only person that suffered for it has been me. And with age and time and experience, that's the one thing about being old, is that I now understand a lot better a lot of things. And I know you guys all think, well, it's different now. Trust me, it's not. You're going to go through the same things I went through. You're going to make a lot of the same mistakes I made. The fact that, it never changes, okay? It never changes that when somebody tells you the stove's hot and not to touch it, it's because they've touched the stove and they've been burned. And you have to do it yourself to find out that they were right. That never changes. The stove's always hot. No matter what generation you're in, okay? No matter how woke you feel, the stove's still hot. That doesn't change.
Yeah, of course. And you said that's your perspective. I think that's a great perspective, and that's why I made this podcast, because I think having a lot of different perspectives on it is the perfect way
Sure.
to do it. It's
And everyone's
trial and
entitled
error.
to their perspective. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And they're free to it. Why get so caught up in your own that you get to a point where you can't be open to somebody else's perspective on whether it's life or relationships or politics or whatever. You know what? Feel free. I will never fight you on those kinds of things. That's your business. Um, for my inner peace, and I tell people this all the time. I view. I don't. I no longer. I give advice, and with advice, that means that if you're smart enough, I don't need to tell you. If you're dumb enough, you're not going to listen anyways. So, and I don't have to go to bed with it, and I don't have to wake up with it. So if I do something out of concern and give you advice and say, hey, don't touch the stove, it's hot, you feel like you need to go ahead and do it, hey, it's no skin off my ass. So,
Yeah, absolutely. And that is a great perspective to look at it. And another thing is, it's just like with this podcast, having these larger than life figures that people look up to coming out about this stuff, it really shows people that they're not alone. Because, like you said, of course you struggle with your mental health. Everybody
of
does.
course.
So I really appreciate you coming on and opening up about that. And coming with mental health is positivity. And I always see you on Twitter, always replying to fans, always thanking them, always giving advice. How important is it for you to keep that positivity towards the fans on social media when we see social media used for so much negativity sometimes?
Well, it is important because I'm very grateful for anybody who is a fan or has enjoyed what I've done or watched what I've done, because without them, I couldn't do what I love to do as much as I love to do it. You know, in the past, I've made statements and stuff, really just to kind of get people's attention and shock them emotionally so that they would listen to what I had to say, like, oh, I hate the fans, or, when I don't at all. I'm very grateful for them. I get frustrated by certain fans that feel like because they have access to information that they now have real knowledge about what goes on, and that they can judge, much like you have fans of football or basketball or baseball, or even people of politics. you know they have access to a certain amount of information, and they assume that they have knowledge about the topic, and nothing could be further from the truth, because quite honestly, in order to have knowledge on any topic, true knowledge, you have to have both information and a commensurate amount of experience to couple together to really have an understanding and knowledge of that topic. Without that, you just have an opinion. You don't have real knowledge. And unfortunately, since we live in a day and an age of information where it's accessible all the time, it's at your fingertips. Many people many people around the world believe that because they have that information, they now have knowledge on that particular topic and they can espouse their opinion as an expert in a public forum, which nothing could be further from the truth. And the way I explain this is if you go to medical school, dependent upon your specialty, you'll go from anywhere from 8 to 12 years attending medical school. Once you graduate from medical school, you're still not a doctor. You don't become a licensed physician until you have completed a certain number of residency training. That means actual hands-on experience where you get that experience to couple with the information you acquired in medical school so that you can now be a designated doctor, a licensed physician. Without that experience, you can have all that information, 8 to 12 years of information, and you will not be a doctor. It takes the experience married with that information to make you a physician. And that applies to everything in life, period. Everything.
Yeah, man, absolutely. And that's another great perspective on life in general. And yeah, earn where you are and appreciate the people who get you where you are. And it's very important. I couldn't
Absolutely.
agree more.
Yes.
Yeah. So as
you're never going to get anywhere alone in this world.
Absolutely. Yeah, I couldn't agree more, especially in the pro wrestling business because you need the fans.
Anything in life, you'll never do it totally on your own. There'll always be somebody there that will have been there to support you or to give you a leg up or give you a hand when you need it, or drive you forward. Even somebody you don't like sometimes is probably the most instrumental person in you achieving whatever it is you've pursued in your life because they drove you and pushed you to want to do it. So thank them. Thanks for being a dick. Hey, buddy, thanks for being a dick. I wouldn't be me if it weren't for you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So as a legend in the business, I want to know, how does Al Snow keep that positive and healthy mindset? But most importantly, how does Al Snow stay motivated?
I don't know. I just go do things. I find I'm passionate about things and I want to do them and I just go and do them. And it's, listen, I've never had it easy, ever. But that's part and parcel. You know what I mean? And in my opinion, events, experiences, situations in your life are nothing more than opportunities for you to collect information to have great stories when you get older. And I got awesome stories. It's never been easy. It's never been, but it's never been hard. I see people all the time on social media. Oh, I'm going to grind. I'm back to the grind, or I'm hustling. Or listen, I've never ground anything. I ain't never hustled. I just went and did because I wanted to do it, and I loved doing it so much. And was it a challenge? Were there times, I literally had to cook food on the engine of my car. I had no money, to survive. I slept in rest areas. That's not a complaint. That's not me, as if it's a cross to bear. I have some incredible stories, and I've been able to go out and live life, and because of being a professional wrestler, I'm from a little town in Ohio, out in the middle of the Northwest. Nobody knows where it's at. Usually, 9 times out of 10, I got to tell them, where it's at. But I've been, to I don't know, I think 40 some different countries. I've been on every continent on the face of the earth except for Antarctica. I've gotten to meet and experience some amazing people all over the world. I've done things that other people read about in books or see on TV, and all because of the fact that I just made a choice that I was going to pursue what I wanted to pursue. And it's never going to be, it's never going to be easy, and it's never going to be, it's simple like flipping on a light switch. You got to go out and just go do it. Just, as crazy, like Nike, just do it. I mean, which a lot of people don't know, that slogan came from a guy who was on death row, and just before they flipped the electric chair switch, said, just do it.
Well, I had no idea that was a thing. Wow,
Yeah.
crazy where things come from, man. But I totally agree, man. To stay motivated, just go and do it. Because as someone who's currently training, do I have inner motivation every single day? Almost, but on the days that I don't, that's where the self-discipline kicks in, and I go and do it anyways. And that's what it takes, man. That not only in wrestling, but in life in general. If you want something, that's what it takes.
Go
And
do it. Go
yeah,
do it. You want to live a life that others don't live, then be willing to do things that others don't do.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Simple
I
as that.
agree. Yeah,
And don't
it
be afraid to
is.
make mistakes. That's how you learn.
Yeah,
Nobody became an expert without making mistakes. No one.
that's true, man. And for a lot of the most successful people, they'll tell you they've had more failures than they have successes. It's just trial and error and continuing to keep
Just
on
make it up as
going.
you go. That's all I do. I just make it up as I go along.
Yeah.
I really do. I just make up shit as I
Absolutely.
go along.
Just see where it takes you, man. Absolutely. So I do like to play a quick game with all my guests. So I will list off 10 names and you can use one word or sentence to
We'll
describe
give it a
each of
shot.
them.
Okay.
All right. All
Go
right.
right
So
ahead.
we're going to kick it off with this year's Royal Rumble winner, Edge.
Edge. Great guy. Uh, was there when he first, started in WWE, and terrific guy, and very happy for all his success.
Absolutely. Then we got his former tag team partner, Christian.
Funny guy, great, another very talented guy, very happy for his success as well.
Yeah. Mick Foley.
Great friend, but annoying.
William Regal.
Consummate professional.
Yeah, he really is. Dustin Rhodes.
Oh, very funny, entertaining guy, very charismatic, and great person.
Absolutely. I've heard nothing but good things about Dustin. Cody Rhodes.
Cody Rhodes is one of my kids. Broke him in the business. He came to OVW and started him from the ground up, and I could not be prouder or happier for him. And in professionally and in life, he seems to be very successful, and I'm thrilled to death for Cody. That's all I can ask is for any of the guys that I train to go and achieve everything they want to achieve.
Yeah, absolutely. He's really made history. Jim Ross.
Great friend
Yeah,
and a great mentor.
absolutely. Jerry the King Lawler.
Such a genius, a literal genius of professional wrestling. Quite honestly, if you're smart and you want to learn, watch him. He is
Definitely.
brilliant. The older I get, the more I realize just how incredibly brilliant that man is.
Absolutely. He really is. Jonathan Coachman.
Oh, great friend, and it was a blessing. He and Michael Cole literally carried me, strapped me to their backs, and carried me when I started doing the commentary part of my career. And if it hadn't been for them, I'd have been floundering, just completely floundering.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, they did a good job because you did a great job on that, man.
Well,
So
it was
yeah.
them. Trust me, it
Yeah.
was all them.
Yeah, of course. And then last but not least, the man who kind of runs the empire, Vince McMahon.
An incredible leader. Vince will never ask someone to do something that he would not do himself. He is driven and passionate about professional wrestling, and that is why he is as successful as he is. Is because he you don't tell him can't, because if I remember when I first came into WWF back in the day, and I forget the guy that was at that time was like a tour manager or something like that. I forget what his job was, but he's like, the one word you don't tell Vince is can't. He said, if Vince calls me up and he says, I want to run a show in Madison Square Garden on this date, and at the same date, I want to run a show in LA. You don't go, oh, well, we can't do that, Vince. You go, okay, here's what it's going to cost you. And here's how we can do it. and then he decides whether or not he wants to do it or not. Simple as that.
Yeah.
And Vince is not afraid, to fail. He's not afraid to take risks. He's not afraid to entrust people with responsibilities and then not go behind them and micromanage them. He'll let them live or die on their own sword.
Absolutely. He really is a genius, and he really is a huge reason why wrestling is where it has gotten today. Much
absolutely. Unquestionably.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
And another guy that I think doesn't get the credit, is Eric Bischoff.
Of course.
I think Eric, has blazed a lot of trails and has come up with a lot of innovative ideas and direction for professional wrestling. And I just don't think he gets the credit he deserves.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more, because even without Eric, when Vince was floundering a little bit, that's what pushed Vince to
That's right.
to get back on track.
For Eric Bischoff, we wouldn't have had the heyday that we did back in the late 90s, early 2000s.
Absolutely, man. So one last simple question that I don't think it's going to take you long at all to answer. What does everybody want?
Oh, we all want head.
And what does everybody need?
Want, need, and love head.
I appreciate you. Thank you so much for hopping on the show. It really means a lot. Where can everybody find you on social media?
If anybody wants to find me on social media, they can go to the Real Al Snow. Before the blue check marks, I had to put the Real Al Snow because there were some people that were imposters. Which, if you want to fake being me, I'm just going to send you a message and go, hey, aim higher. Like, put the bar up a little further. Like, if I were going to fake being a celebrity, I would want to be George Clooney or, Neil Armstrong because he was the first man on the moon or something like that. But some people, I guess, figure they might as well take a shot at, setting it down low and fake being me. But you can follow me at The Real Al Snow on Twitter, The Real Al Snow on Instagram, and The Real Al Snow on Facebook. So,
absolutely. I'll drop all the links down below. Everybody definitely go check that out.
If anybody wants information on Ohio Valley Wrestling or the Al Snow Wrestling Academy, they can go to ovwrestling.com or they can go to aswa.live. And they can find out all the information they need to see for OVW and for the Al Snow Wrestling Academy.
Of course, and I'll drop the links to all of that good stuff down below, so everybody make sure to go check that out. This has been Wrestling with Awareness with Vikram Prashar. We have just wrestled the mind with Al Snow. Please like, comment, and hit that subscribe button, and I'll see you guys in the next episode.